Although Bray's Thomas the Cat was short-lived, another feline was starting to gain significant fame. The animated version of Felix the Cat was created by Otto Mesmer, based off a comic strip by Pat Sullivan. Felix's lovable but mischievous nature, combined with the surreal situations he got himself into, rocketed the cat to fame in 1922. Felix's wide appeal came from the fact that mature adults and young children alike could identify with him. His audience encompassed all social classes and ages, from kings to beggars and grandmothers to toddlers. By 1926, his fame was eclipsed only by Charlie Chaplin's. Felix's image graced everything from cigars to baby oil. The way in which Felix's films were produced typified the studio production methods of the 1920s. An assembly line of artists, tracers, and inkers cranked out as much as one new film every 2 weeks. With the arrival of sound cartoons in the late 1920s, Felix's spotlight had started to dim, and by 1930, production had come to a halt. John Bray's retirement had left a huge void in the industry, and many of his former employees became his successors. One of these men was Max Fleischer, the Bray employee that had invented rotoscoping. In his first experiment, he had filmed his brother dressed in full clown apparel, then projected the image onto a board and traced the drawings over it. 4 years after this experiment, he would release Out of the Inkwell, a cartoon series featuring a clown, which he would later rename Coco. Fleischer's company went on to produce live-action series, comedy shorts, scientific documentaries, and song cartoons, a sing-along series which was the first to feature synchronized sound. Eventually, Fleischer's studio went out of business, but Coco the Clown continued on in a series renamed The Inkwell Imps, distributed by Paramount. By 1930, Coco's popularity dwindled as the talkies became the standard, and he was replaced by a sexy newcomer named Betty Boop. Another Bray successor and ex-employee was Walter Lantz. Lantz began working for Bray in 1918 and quickly rose through the ranks before being promoted to Director General of Bray Productions. While at Bray, he directed various films ranging from an odd series called Unnatural Histories to the more popular Dinky Doodles. By late 1927, Lantz knew that Bray Studios would be closing, so he moved to Hollywood and found employment with an up-and-coming animator named Walt Disney. By the time the two artists met, Disney had already achieved modest success. It had not come easily, though. Walt Disney came from humble beginnings. He grew up on a farm near Kansas City, Missouri, and in 1919 he started a commercial art studio with his friend Ub Iwerks, aptly named the Iwerks Disney Commercial Artists. In order to supplement their income, the pair worked for Kansas City Film Ad, making semi-animated promotional shorts. During that time, Disney approached Frank Newman, the owner of a chain of cinemas in the Kansas City area. He offered to supply Newman with a series called Newman Laugh-O-Grams. The films achieved modest success in the Kansas City area, and Disney tried to break into the big time by forming Laugh-O-Gram Films Incorporated. But the limited income could not sustain his company, and it quickly went belly up. In August 1923, Disney left Kansas City for Hollywood, California. He brought with him $40, some drawing supplies, and a sample of his work he called Alice's Wonderland. It featured a live-action girl going on adventures in an animated world. Walt joined his brother Roy Disney in Hollywood and began writing letters to try and find distribution for his film. Much to his relief, he received a letter from Margaret Winkler, the only female film distributor of her time. After seeing his work, Winkler offered to pay $1,500 for each of the next 6 pictures in the Alice series. The very next day, Walt and Roy formed the Disney Brothers Cartoon Studio and signed a contract with Winkler. Within a few months, Disney hired 2 employees and soon after enlisted the talents of some of his Kansas City friends, convincing Iwerks and another artist, Hugh Harman, to join him in Hollywood. The Alice series was well received, and Disney next created the character of Oswald the Rabbit to be released by Universal. The studio mistakenly released the picture as Oscar the Rabbit, but nonetheless it premiered to an enthusiastic response in July of 1927. Within a year, it became one of the most popular cartoon series in America. However, Disney did not own the rights, and the character was taken away from him by Charles Mintz, Margaret Winkler's husband. The experience alienated Disney, and he vowed never to let something like that happen again. It was shortly after this incident that Disney created what would become one of the most iconic figures in animation history, a mouse named Mickey. Disney and Iwerks completed 2 silent black and white shorts featuring Mickey called Plain Crazy and Galloping Gancho, but no distributors were interested. So Disney decided to make a bold move and join the sound revolution. On November 18, 1928, Disney released Mickey's first hit, Steamboat Willie. It was the first animated film designed specifically to be screened with synchronized sound, and it opened to rave reviews in the Colony Theater in New York City. The era of silent animation was coming to an end. Mickey's popularity grew quickly, and Disney, learning from his past mistakes, trademarked his new star. Mickey's success garnered Disney's studio with fame and a sizable income. One factor that set Disney apart from other animators was his sacrifice of profits for quality. By the mid-1930s, a cast of characters including Pluto, Goofy, and Donald Duck had joined Mickey, adding to the studio's fame. But Disney was not satisfied. His brother Roy was constantly urging him to cut costs in order to turn more of a profit, but Walt had his own solution. In order to make a bigger profit, he would spend more money, this time on a feature film. The idea for Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was conceived. It was a bold move, especially because Disney didn't have enough money to complete his pet project. He was financially jumping off a cliff and trying to build a plane on the way down. The original budget for Snow White was $250,000, but after 3 years of hard work, Disney had spent nearly $2 million on the film, an astronomical figure for the 1930s. In order to complete the film, he mortgaged his house and took out loans from the Bank of America. On December 24, 1937, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was released to an eager audience. It was the first animated feature film in English and went on to make $8.5 million in its original release, becoming one of the highest-grossing films of all time. But hard times were yet to come. On May 29, 1941, the Screen Cartoonists Guild picketed Disney's studio. About 1/3 of Disney's artists went on strike. The seemingly unbreakable good morale of Disney employees had come to a screeching halt. As a result, Disney parted ways with some of his most trusted and talented animators, firing many of them in a breach of contract. The golden age of Disney Studios was coming to an end. Despite these hard times, Disney's studio went on to produce some of the most enduring cinematic masterpieces of all time, animation or otherwise. Many former Disney